The Italian Riviera is one of Europe's most legendary travel destinations. It is home to both Genoa, one of Italy's major cities, and Cinque Terre, one of the most scenic areas in the world. The Italian Riviera is no stranger to the spotlight. It draws 15 million tourists annually and has appeared in countless films and novels. It stretches from the French border to Tuscany's northern reaches as part of Liguria, a region wedged between the Ligurian Sea and the towering Maritime Alps. After crossing the French-Italian border, the first Italian town you'll stumble upon is Ventimiglia. It's the first place where La Dolce Vita begins to cast its spell. The town is split by the Roya River. The old town sits up on a hill. The newer part sprawls along the coast and offers a mix of beaches and, how to put this politely, authentic urban planning. As the gateway to Italy, Ventimiglia welcomes tourists with open arms and plenty of things to see. The old town is a medieval labyrinth of narrow alleys and ancient churches. The Romanesque cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta from the 11th century is a little architectural gem worth visiting. The Friday market is legendary. Here you'll find all kinds of leather bags and suspiciously cheap watches. The local beaches are rocky, but the water is clear and inviting. Facilities are minimal unless you hit a private beach club. The town retains a sense of authenticity, as it has avoided the flashy commercialization seen in nearby Côte d'Azur. Ventimiglia is home to 24,000 people. The locals are friendly yet refreshingly unpretentious, a rare blend that feels like a good espresso. Warm, strong, and without unnecessary frills. Just a short drive from Ventimiglia up in the Ligurian hills lies the village of Dolceacqua. Though it lacks the seaside glamour of its coastal counterparts, it stubbornly claims its place on the Italian Riviera. The village's charm compensates for the absence of a beach. Dolceacqua was first documented in 1151, controlled by the Doria family. The Doria castle, which now stands partially in ruins, looms over the village as a stern reminder of medieval feuds. The village is bisected by Nervia River and connected by the iconic Ponte Vecchio, a medieval stone bridge so beautiful that even Claude Monet was inspired to paint it. Art lovers can retrace Monet's steps, or at least his brushstrokes, along the Ponte Vecchio and the riverside. Dolceacqua's lack of modernity makes it perfect for those who prefer cobblestones to concrete. Festivals celebrating everything from olives to fireflies punctuate the calendar and prove that Dolceacqua knows how to appreciate the small things in life. Sanremo is geographically gifted. To the north, the mountains rise like protective sentinels. To the south, the Mediterranean stretches lazily, with shimmering blue views and occasional plastic debris. Founded in Roman times, the city was part of the Republic of Genoa during the Middle Ages. By the 19th century, it became a fashionable retreat for Europe's aristocracy. Russian nobility favoured Sanremo, leaving behind onion-domed churches. Sanremo's population of around 55,000 is a mix of long-time residents and international newcomers who've embraced the city's slow pace and sunny charm. The people are friendly, though their enthusiasm for tourists sometimes feels inversely proportional to the number of cruise ships in port. The old town, called La Pigna, is a medieval labyrinth of narrow streets and hidden courtyards. La Pigna dates back to the 11th century, when it was built as a fortified settlement to protect against Saracen raids. The city is synonymous with the Sanremo Music Festival. This annual event is the cradle of Italian pop music. It also inspired Eurovision, for better or worse. The Villa Noble, once home to Alfred Noble, creator of Dynamite and the Peace Prize, is open to visitors who appreciate irony. Sanremo's unique microclimate is perfect for growing flowers and olives. The city is also famous for its flower cultivation, and its blooms are exported worldwide. Therefore, Sanremo is called the City of Flowers. Apricale is yet another medieval village in the Ligurian hinterland of the Italian Riviera. Its name comes from the Latin apricus, meaning sunny. Apricale is a hilltop village surrounded by olive groves and forests. It is home to about 600 residents, and most of the population is older. Apricale is an interesting destination for those seeking an authentic Italian experience. The village's architectural treasures provide plenty to explore. One of the most iconic landmarks is Castello della Lucertola, or Castle of the Lizard. No, it's not named after a terrifying reptilian overlord, it's just an ordinary old fortress that now hosts art exhibitions. Nearby, the Church of the Purification of the Virgin Mary has some Baroque-style interiors and old frescoes. Apricale is also known for its murals, which add a splash of whimsy to the stone walls. They depict local legends and folklore. It's rumoured that Apricale is haunted. Locals say you shouldn't wander among the trees alone at night because you might encounter the Ombra del Contadino, the shadow of the farmer. This spectral figure supposedly appears to scold anyone who damages the trees or doesn't appreciate the olive oil. Imagine getting chewed out by a ghost over a bottle of extra virgin. Cervo clings to the Ligurian coastline like a symphony of stone and sea. It rises, tier by tier, an ancient amphitheatre carved into the hillside, overlooking the boundless shimmer of the Mediterranean. Cervo's defining moment came in the Renaissance, when the village embraced its artistic spirit. Wealth from the sea poured into the stone. It shaped churches and palaces that still stand as monuments to human aspiration. The Church of San Giovanni Battista, a masterpiece of Baroque architecture, is more than a building. It truly commands the skyline. Inside, frescoes bloom across the walls in a riot of colour. Cervo is a model of sustainable tourism. The absence of cars within the village preserves its peace, and locals have embraced eco-friendly practices to protect their heritage and environment. Stories persist of hidden treasures buried by pirates who once raided the Ligurian coast. While no significant finds have been uncovered, treasure hunters occasionally scour the surrounding hills and caves for clues. Genoa isn't your typical Italian Riviera city. It's a city with attitude, shaped like a crescent moon, with the large port at its core. There's no room to sprawl here. Instead, the city climbs up the hills. It's a charming mess of vertical neighbourhoods, claustrophobic alleys, and staircases. Genoa is a labyrinth, but getting lost is half the fun. It's a place that hides its beauty, daring you to dig deep. You won't find perfect streets with gelato stands every 2 steps. Instead, you'll stumble upon graffiti-covered churches and old neighbourhoods that have seen better days. The old town is a chaotic maze where Renaissance palaces casually pop up in alleys. Historically, Genoa has been a true powerhouse. It was a maritime republic during the Middle Ages, rivaling Venice and Pisa. The Genoese were master traders and explorers. Christopher Columbus was born here, though it's still debated whether the city takes credit or apologises for that. From the 12th to the 14th centuries, Genoa dominated Mediterranean trade routes. Its ships sailed to distant lands in search of spices, silk, and anything worth selling. By the 19th century, the city became more industrial. Its massive port, still Italy's busiest today, made Genoa even more important. Despite modern changes, Genoa retains its old-world soul. In recent years, tourism has picked up speed. Genoa now welcomes about 2 million visitors annually. Most of them probably came here by accident while trying to find Portofino, but more on that later. With its beautiful fountains and surrounding architecture, the Piazza de' Ferrari, Genoa's main square, is a sight to see. Nearby lies the famous UNESCO-listed Palazzi dei Rolli. These stunning Renaissance palaces once hosted noble visitors. The old port, revitalised by architect Renzo Piano, is another highlight. It blends history and modernity with ease, and has attractions like the Biosfera, a giant glass dome filled with tropical plants, and the Acquario di Genova, one of Europe's largest aquariums. You can hop into one of Genoa's ancient elevators, like the Ascensore di Castelletto. It looks like something out of a Victorian horror film, but takes you to views that make the whole experience worth it. Then there's La Lanterna, the 12th century lighthouse that looms over the city. It's one of the oldest working lighthouses in the world. Genoa's population sits at just over 550,000. While the numbers have declined slightly in recent decades, the people of Genoa are proud of the city. They're known for their no-nonsense attitude and the love of food. Getting to Genoa is relatively easy. The Cristoforo Colombo Airport connects the city to European centres. By train, Genoa is connected to Milan, Turin and Florence. Genoa's metro system is small but sufficient, and ferries connect the port to other Mediterranean destinations. Before we continue, please hit the like button to support World Travel Guide. It's very important. Camogli is just 25 kilometres from Genoa, but worlds apart from the city's chaos. Camogli isn't just a place, it's a feeling. It's the sound of waves crashing against a harbour wall and the smell of fresh focaccia mingling with the salt air. This beautiful village is part of the Portofino Regional Natural Park. Its name, likely derived from Casa delle Mogli, or House of Wives, hints at its seafaring past. While the men were off navigating dangerous waters, the women held down the fort, literally. Camogli is relatively quiet compared to its popular neighbour, Portofino. Yet the village's understated beauty makes it an irresistible destination for those who travel to this region. Compared to the always stunning Cinque Terre, this place feels considerably less stressful because the majority of the visitors are Italian. The 12th century Basilica of Santa Maria Assunta stands as Camogli's biggest landmark. Its golden dome and stately facade serve as both a spiritual centre and a photogenic darling for visitors. The Castello della Dragonara is a classic example of medieval coastal fortification. Its design reflects its purpose, sturdy, utilitarian, and built to withstand both the elements and enemy attacks. And let's not forget the annual Sagra del Pesce, or Fish Festival, held every May. During this event, locals use a huge frying pan. Thousands of sardines are cooked and distributed to attendees. Portofino, one of the crown jewels of the Italian Riviera, lies on a small peninsula that juts into the Ligurian Sea. Portofino's origins can be traced back to Roman times when it was known as Portus Delphini, a nod to the dolphins swimming in its waters. During the 19th century, Portofino's idyllic scenery caught the eye of European aristocrats. Word spread, and by the 20th century it had become a meeting point for celebrities and jet-setters. Ernest Hemingway, Liz Taylor and Clark Gable were among those who came here. Today, the fishing boats have largely been replaced by yachts. Let's not sugarcoat it. Portofino is outrageously expensive. Want to enjoy a cappuccino with that view of pastel perfection? That'll be €10, and no, it doesn't come with a gold leaf garnish. Shopping is no better. The cobbled streets are lined with designer boutiques that seem to exist solely to remind you of your socio-economic inferiority. Parking is limited and exorbitant. But let's be real. If you're coming to Portofino, you probably weren't budgeting to begin with. Public transport is a more democratic option. Trains stop at Santa Margherita Ligure, from where you can take a short bus ride or a ferry to Portofino. The real attraction is the village itself, but there's more than meets the eye. The Castello Brown, a relic of the 16th century, offers both history and great views that make you forget the ticket price. The lighthouse at Punta del Capo, another scenic spot, promises the perfect sunset photo. The lighthouse also marks the southernmost tip of the Portofino promontory. If you're looking to escape the crowds and the price tags, the Portofino Regional Natural Park has over 80 kilometres of trails that go through green forests and along cliffs. Santa Margherita Ligure is set between the polished luxury of Portofino and the beauty of Rapallo. If Liguria were a string of pearls, Santa Margherita would be the one with a slightly crooked clasp, but irresistible shimmer. The Portofino Regional Park's impossibly difficult terrain likely prevented Santa Margherita from being ruined by the grotesque residential complexes of the 1960s that can be seen on the outskirts of many other Italian coastal cities. Santa Margherita's past isn't exactly epic. There weren't any grand battles fought here, no empires crumbled on its shores, but the wealthy made themselves comfortable. During the 17th century, the Genoese aristocracy took notice of the town. Mansions sprang up like mushrooms after rain. These noble families built colourful villas that still stand today, weathered but proud. Tourism is, of course, the lifeblood of this glorious town. Santa Margherita rolls out the red carpet for visitors, which is Italian for saying, "Sure, we'll take your money. Now stop complaining about the slow service." Driving in Santa Margherita during summer is a masochistic exercise in futility. If you insist, take the A12 motorway. Just be prepared to circle parking lots like a vulture and cry when you finally find a space that costs more than your lunch. Within the town, everything is walkable. Actually, everything is climbable too, thanks to steep hills that will punish you for skipping leg day. The Lungomare, the town's lively seafront promenade, is perfect for aimless wandering. The beaches are small, pebbly, crowded and overpriced, but you'll still love every second. The town of Sestri Levante is a story told by the sea and written on the land, a narrow peninsula tethering the wild blue Ligurian Sea to the quiet, ancient rhythms of Italy's coast. Its geography speaks in whispers of duality, two bays, two moods, two faces of one small town. Baia del Silenzio is a serene, crescent-shaped bay bordered by traditional Ligurian houses in soft pastel colours. The only noise here is the occasional splash of water. On the other side of the peninsula lies the Baia delle Favole, Bay of Fables. This bay is alive with the human tide of fishing boats and laughter. During the Middle Ages, Sestri Levante was a maritime centre and a target for pirate attacks. In 1542, the town successfully defended itself from a pirate raid, a historical event that remains a point of pride for locals. The 19th century brought increased interest from writers and artists. Hans Christian Andersen stayed in the town and reportedly found inspiration in its beauty. Sestri Levante's old town is a place that consumes you. It's not elegant, it's not perfect, but it's alive in a way that polished cities never are. Down below, at the mouth of the old town, sits the Basilica de Santa Maria de Nazareth. Inside, it's an explosion of colour and light. The ceiling erupts in frescoes, and marble pillars stand like guards, smooth and immovable, while every detail begs for your attention. About 18,000 residents call this place home. During the summer, when tourists flood in, the town swells with energy, but its character holds firm. Liguria is the birthplace of pesto, and Sestri Levante serves it with pride. But if you ask for ketchup, they might politely escort you to the border. Cinque Terre isn't just a coastal area, it's a phenomenon. It's a dream destination for everyone. Hikers, foodies, romantics, photographers. It's scenic, it's historic, and it's wildly popular. But why? What makes these 5 small villages stand out in a country overflowing with beauty? Let's break it down. Monterosso al Mare is the travel heavyweight of Cinque Terre. It's the largest village, the flattest, which is a true blessing in this region, and the only one with proper beaches. While the other villages stand on cliffs, Monterosso spreads itself out confidently by the sea. It's Cinque Terre's most accessible village and its busiest, sometimes to its detriment. Monterosso was founded during the 11th century. It was a fortified village, built to protect its people from pirate raids. The ruins of its old defensive walls and watchtowers still stand today. The village is split into 2 sections, Old Town and New Town, separated by a tunnel that slices through a rocky hill. The Old Town is a tangle of narrow streets and colourful houses that tries to hold on to some authentic charm. The New Town, meanwhile, is more spacious and modern, with seafront promenades and sprawling beaches. Monterosso appeals to beach lovers. Its sandy shores are rare in this rocky region, and they come with umbrellas, lounges, and beachfront bars. During peak summer days, its beaches alone can see up to 10,000 visitors. Monterosso also attracts hikers. It's the starting or ending point for the Sentiero Azzurro, the famous coastal trail that links all 5 villages. The surrounding hills are covered in olive groves, lemon trees and vineyards, an unmistakable Ligurian landscape. The village is also famous for its lemons. You'll find them in everything: limoncello, desserts and decorations. If nothing else, Monterosso is easy to get to. The Cinque Terre express train stops here, and frequent services connect it to La Spezia, Genoa, and the other villages. The station is conveniently located near both Old Town and New Town. Vernazza is a village of contradictions. Its beauty is undeniable, and it's the only village in Cinque Terre with a natural harbour, but it's buried under a tidal wave of tourism. The history of Vernazza is fascinating, but most people just ignore it. Yes, it dates back to the 11th century. Yes, it was an important maritime base for the Republic of Genoa. But let's face it, the tourists don't care. They're too busy taking selfies in front of the harbour to even notice the iconic Doria Castle standing above them. The Belforte Tower, the most prominent part of the castle, is a great vantage point. The church of Santa Margherita di Antiochia, with its Gothic Ligurian style and bell tower, is another gem from the past. Vernazza lives from the tourism. Its local economy depends on the millions of visitors who flood the streets every year. But has it gone too far? Absolutely. At peak season, Vernazza isn't a quiet village, it's more of a travel theme park. The population grows from its modest 1,000 residents to thousands more, who are cramming into every available space. The charm that once defined this village gets buried under the sheer weight of its popularity. Vernazza pulls in more tourists than its neighbours, except maybe Monterosso, which has the advantage of actual beaches. In 2011, a devastating flood nearly wiped Vernazza off the map. It took years of rebuilding, but the scars are still hidden beneath its polished facade. The hiking trails leading to Monterosso and Corniglia are legendary for their views and notorious for their crowds. You'll probably enjoy the hike until the peaceful silence is shattered by a determined group of Germans, decked out in full hiking gear and socks and sandals combos. Unlike its counterparts, which are closely tied to the sea, Corniglia occupies a high promontory 100 metres above sea level. This location sets it apart in terms of character and appeal. The village is surrounded by terraced vineyards, which have been cultivated for centuries. These terraces and the dry stone walls supporting them stretch for over 6,700 kilometres throughout Liguria. That's longer than the Great Wall of China. Corniglia's location also makes access more challenging compared to the others. The Cinque Terre train line connects all 5 villages, but Corniglia's station is located at sea level. Reaching Corniglia requires either climbing the Ladarina, a brick staircase of 382 steps leading up from the train station, or taking a shuttle bus. There is no port for boats here. That's why the village sees significantly fewer tourists than its counterparts. For every 10 tourists in Vernazza or Monterosso, only 2 make it to Corniglia. The Church of San Pietro was constructed in the 14th century. It stands out for its Gothic Ligurian design. The rose window and detailed carvings exemplify the region's artistic and architectural heritage. With a population of fewer than 200 residents, Corniglia is the smallest and least populated of the Cinque Terre villages. Its inhabitants primarily work in agriculture, particularly in the maintenance of the surrounding vineyards. The limited number of restaurants and shops in Corniglia reflects its more subdued approach to tourism. Visitors are encouraged to engage with the natural and cultural heritage rather than commercial attractions. For those interested in hiking, Corniglia is connected to Vernazza and Manarola with marked hiking trails. Manarola is the second smallest of Cinque Terre's villages. It's a cascading dream of pastel-coloured houses and the most photographed place on the Italian Riviera. The geography here is as stunning as it is nerve-wracking. The houses seem to defy gravity, stacked haphazardly along the cliffs. Narrow cobblestone streets wind through the village. They all lead to a small square and eventually down to a tiny harbour. There's no sandy beach here, just jagged rocks and clear waters. It's raw, dramatic, and undeniably picturesque. Manarola is a tourist magnet. Its iconic view, houses tumbling down the cliff toward the sea, graces countless postcards and screensavers. As a result, it's no surprise that Manarola is often packed with visitors. Manarola's roots go deep. It was founded in the 12th century by settlers from the nearby hilltop village of Velastra, and its history is tied to wine and fishing. Today, it has a permanent population of just over 300 residents. Like the other villages of Cinque Terre, most locals are involved in tourism and agriculture. The fishing boats bobbing in the harbour are more decorative now than practical. The cliffside walk above the harbour leads you to the Manarola scenic viewpoint, the one that has made this village famous. You should arrive early or late to avoid the crowds and get a clean photo without a stranger's elbow in the frame. Despite the lack of sandy shores, Manarola remains a favourite swimming spot. Its rocky cliffs and clear waters lure swimmers and daredevils alike. The train station lies slightly above the village and requires a short walk downhill to reach the centre. Trains are frequent, but often overcrowded. Riomaggiore is where Cinque Terre begins or ends, depending on your perspective. It's the southernmost village of the famous five, the one closest to La Spezia, and often the first stop for travellers. Like its siblings, it's stunning, chaotic, and overflowing with charm. The village is immensely popular, though not as swarmed as Vernazza or Manarola. It serves as both a destination and a base, with many tourists staying here while exploring the rest of Cinque Terre. During summer, the streets are packed and the restaurants are full. The village's tiny harbour is the heart of Riomaggiore. Fishing boats line the water, colourful houses rise on either side, and the cliffs form a great backdrop. The 13th century castle of Riomaggiore stands above the village. It offers some great panoramic views of the sea and hills. The church of San Giovanni Battista was built in 1340. This Gothic-style church is a quiet contrast to the lively village. Its simple interior and historic charm make it worth a visit. The Cinque Terre Express connects Riomaggiore to La Spezia and the other villages. The station is a short walk from the centre. Riomaggiore, like most Italian Riviera villages, isn't car-friendly. Parking is available outside the village, but it's expensive and limited. At its best, Riomaggiore is a window into the soul of Cinque Terre. At its worst, it's a beautiful mess, buried under its own popularity. Portovenere is one of the most beautiful small towns on the Italian Riviera. Here you'll find wonderful islands, old churches and castles, and you can use it as a home base to visit the Cinque Terre. Getting here is an adventure in itself. The nearest train station is in La Spezia. From there, buses shuttle you to Portovenere. Alternatively, you can arrive by boat. Cars are technically an option, but parking is a nightmare. Once you arrive, walking is your best bet. There are simply too many narrow streets and staircases that are leading to hidden corners and panoramic viewpoints. Portovenere is part of a collective cultural landscape that includes Cinque Terre and the surrounding islands. Palmaria, Tino and Tineto, recognised together as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997. Behind the town, terraced hills rise steeply. Their slopes are cultivated with olive groves and vineyards. San Pietro Church is a Gothic beauty from the 13th century, and perhaps the most iconic spot in Portovenere. It's surrounded by the sea on three sides, and you can walk around its outer terrace. During the 12th century, Portovenere was a critical outpost for the Republic of Genoa. Castello Doria was built by the powerful Doria family as part of a broader effort to fortify Genoese territories along the Ligurian coast. You should climb up to this fortress for some of the best views of the town and the nearby islands. Just off the coast lies Palmaria Island, the largest of 3 islands in a mini-archipelago. Hiking trails go through Mediterranean scrub, forests and abandoned quarries. The loop trail around the island can be completed in a few hours. La Spezia is literally the gateway to Cinque Terre if you come from the south. The city sits in the Gulf of Poets. Yes, the name is slightly ridiculous, but it's not La Spezia's fault poets like Lord Byron and Percy Shelley couldn't stay out of the water, or alive in Shelley's case. It's a working port city with history, grit, and just enough charm to surprise you. The port of La Spezia is massive. It is one of Italy's main military and commercial harbours, yet somehow doesn't overwhelm the city's laid-back vibe. La Spezia has some ancient settlements and Roman ties, but it wasn't until the 19th century that the city truly flourished, thanks to King Victor Emmanuel II. He declared it a naval hub. That brought economic growth and lots of sailors. During World War II, La Spezia took a battering. bombs rained down and flattened much of its historic charm, the rebuilding gave it a functional modern look that some might describe as pragmatic. There are Art Nouveau facades, practical post-war blocks and random medieval bits all over the city. Walk around La Spezia and you'll notice streets named after poets, revolutionaries, dates, and random historical figures you've never heard of. If you're here for mind-blowing attractions, you should lower your expectations. But if you head uphill toward the old town and climb a lot of stairs, you'll reach Castello di San Giorgio, an interesting 13th century castle that was originally built by the Lunigiana lords. What's your favourite place on the Italian Riviera? Let us know in the comments. If you loved this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to support World Travel Guide.